So Nigel Hughes, the first thing he said, he lied. He said, I spent my last press conference, 3/4 of my last press conference, talking about him and the AFC. Now, you were here. You know, I dismissed their Congress. I didn't even want to speak about it. But he said that there. And that's why today I'm going to spend a substantial amount of time, since he wished it. So I'm going to spend a substantial amount of time talking about the AFC and Nigel Hughes. So I can, when he says that in the future, it would be the truth. This party tried to present an image that Nigel Hughes is the new leader, will take the AFC to greater heights. We have now a new leader. But what did we get? We got a group of recycled politicians. This is a recycled party of recycled politicians. Not a single one of them is new and doesn't have baggage. It's a bunch of corrupt people who have huge overload of issues that they still are they're yet to answer the people of this country for. So this is a recycling of old leaders. So the top 3 persons are Nigel Hughes. Nigel Hughes is not new. Nigel Hughes was twice chairman of the party. Now there are 3 top posts in the party: chairman, the leader, the chairman, and the general secretary. So Nigel Hughes was chairman twice. He resigned in 2013, and he resigned again in 2016. So he's not new. Nigel Hughes is a recycled leader who had been there from since 2011 in that party. David Patterson, you know David Patterson, he is also recycled. Raphael Trotman is recycled. He was formerly leader, now general secretary. Cathy Hughes and the other, Cathy Hughes is recycled. Ramjatan, recycled. The people who are new, the few who are trying to take over the party, particularly younger people, they were all pushed aside. So it is a cabal of recycled leaders who have a huge baggage. Let's start with Cathy Hughes. Cathy Hughes is still to answer the country about her role in giving contracts to herself in her own ministry. She signs the contract, the checks on behalf of the company whilst a minister, and then she approves in her own ministry contracts for her own company. We have documents to that effect, and there are many other things. Just to give you an example of it. Recycle leader, she needs to answer that. Under Ramjatan's tenure, the ministry was a massive cesspool of corruption. The sale of gun licenses reached unprecedented proportions under Ramjatan. Patterson is now charged in 2 cases for corrupt practices, leaving out all the huge gifts that he took from state agencies that were buying fancy things, gold jewelry for him and all of that stuff. State agencies buying those for him and giving them as gifts. And he lied. He said, I never wore a bracelet, and then they found pictures of him wearing the same bracelet. Not just corrupt, but also lying about the corruption. Trotman, we know about his infamous role in the PSA, the signing of the PSA, and I'm going to come to that in a moment. And then Nigel Hughes has been involved. I'll talk about him in a moment. Is this not what's new? This is a recycled group of leaders who were there from the beginning, who have lied to the people of this country, who've been engaged, some of them, in corrupt practices, and they're coming to present themselves as new. Oh, we have a new leader now, Nigel Hughes. And by the way, this political party is owned by two persons, Trotman and Ramjatan. They're incorporated under the Companies Act. So, and the two directors are Raphael Trotman and Ramjatan. So no, the people, though there is delusion on the other side that they own the party, these two persons own the party. They can one day decide we can end the party because they're the directors. It's incorporated and owned by these two persons. So we've seen this. They talk a lot about diversity. This was a big selling point. But look at the three top leaders now who are appointed are of one race. This was their strong selling point in the past. Now, you recall when we put together the Constitutional Reform Commission, that Nigel Hughes spoke about the need for diversity. And he was representing a side that was not diverse. We had two female of the five, two women of the five that we put on the Constitutional Reform Commission. We had Afro-Guyanese, Portuguese Guyanese, Guyanese, Amerindian, and Indo-Guyanese on the Constitutional Reform Commission, the PPP's rep. And he talked about diversity, and he came from a side, the side that put him up was not diverse. So now this is the great diversity. Why didn't he? This was his own list of candidates. He had this slate. This was his slate. Why didn't he insist on diversity there? What about a woman in one of the top posts? What about somebody of another race in the top post? And he beats his chest about diversity. This is the duplicity of a person like Nigel Hughes. Now, what did they do? As I said before, they've chased away almost all the young people from the party. They made it clear that you don't have a role here. And in doing so, they've damaged some of these people beyond anything that we could have done. It's one thing when the PPP says that Sherrod Duncan was hustling the Chronicle money. But it's another thing when your top leaders in the party take the articles and go around the country in all the party groups and share this with people and say he's not fit to be the leader of our party. Now, he can't emerge back in that party as a leader because you've done the damage internally. And that's what they did, apart from other things. They've damaged them in a major way. When you talk about young people and their growth in the PPP, you can go back into our history, the growth of the PPP. At the highest levels, the cabinet, as I said before, I became president when I was 35 years. I went into the cabinet in my 20s. Finally went into the cabinet in his 20s. He became president 40. We have a young president now. At the last Congress, we have, of the 35 candidates and the Central Committee members, 40 35 Central Committee, and 5 candidate members. We had 11 new persons that came into the top leadership of the party. That's over 25% turnover. New people coming in. If you check the names, young people, look at people like Sarah Brown and Brentnell Ashley from Region 1. These are 2 top leaders in Region 1 who have now gone into the top echelons of the party. This is the diversity we have, not just diversity, but young people. They grow in the party. We're already thinking about the next wave of ministers in the future, training them up, making sure that people, grow in the party so they're experienced, they not just at party level in the government, so when they take over, they have a repository of knowledge, they can continue the upward trend for our country. That's what our party wants. Look at what these people did. They just recycled all the old leaders, the leaders with baggage from the past, and brought them back into the fore and excluded the young people. And in excluding them, damaged them by spreading all the rumors and lies about them. Well, maybe some of it may be factual too, but it came from within. This is the AFC. So let me talk a bit about Nigel Hughes now, since he wanted it, and he said I spent 3/4 of my last press conference talking about him. So I was shocked that minutes after he was elected the leader of the AFC, that he gave an interview with the Morara Waves and obscenely said he's only going to disengage from the company, his company that is working for Exxon, should he become president. And he may not engage in discussions in his party that he is leader of when it comes to oil and gas policy. The leader of the party saying, I will not engage in discussions in my party on oil and gas matters because Exxon is my client. So he then said, should there be a conflict of interest between the national interest, and I must say that the Morara Waves pose some really great questions, because it's even more obscene, and I think you should read it. Every Guyanese should read it, how obscene it is. I can't convey that, the feeling of revulsion that I felt. This is someone aspiring to the highest office in the country, who've just been elected the leader of a party. He wants to be the presidential candidate, and says, if there is a conflict between Guyana now and Exxon Mobil, I will take the side of Exxon Mobil. I will defend my client. Now, I thought that when you're running for office, you want to change this country. You have to have some lofty ideals. It sometimes costs you in your pocket. I did not want to return to politics in Guyana. I had started a pretty lucrative career in the period after I left office. I returned to it, and I lost for it. But people, sometimes you have to forego the private benefits, money basically, and to when national interest calls you. And in this case, He was asked directly, and he says, no, only if I become president, then I will do that. In the meantime, I will work for Exxon, and I will, if Guyana's interests conflicts with Exxon's interests, my client's interests will prevail. And I will not be part of a discussion at my party level about oil and gas policy. So who would lead the discussions? Like me saying in the PPP, I wouldn't be part of any discussion on a particular matter because I'm working for somebody. Obscene. And this was minutes after he got elected. But is this atypical behavior? It's not atypical behavior of Nigel Hughes, because you recall in 2013 when he resigned from the AFC, it was Oversight Global. APNU was saying, and all of the others, AFC, that we are corrupt, we're developing the hydro, but he was working for the company. He resigned there. And so in 2016, he resigned again. And I want to deal with that resignation in 2016 so that the people of this country will understand what took place in that period. So, you would recall that Nigel Hughes resigned on the 11th, I think, of April. And he gave a vague reason. Even the Starbuck News and the others said the reason was vague. They thought that he was aggrieved by APNU. And so now I'm understanding why that resignation took place. Because on the 15th of April, the government started to formally negotiate with Exxon Mobil the 2016 PSA. So 3 days before the formal start of the negotiations, or the concluding stages, I shouldn't say formal, the concluding stages of the negotiation, Nigel Hughes resigned. But if you look at the Clyde and Company report, there was a report commissioned by the government of Guyana, Trotman, and that was presented on the 30th of January 2020. It's called Clive and Company, basically to justify that nothing was wrong with the 2016 agreement. But there are some very telling things that came out of a detailed reading of the report. It says that on the 19th of May 2015, EEPGL sent a proposed escrow process flowchart, setting out various sets and timelines for the execution of a new PSA, and that is what would become the 2016 agreement. So in the period from May 2015, when Nigel Hughes was still chairman of the party, the negotiations started because Exxon, their own report said that Exxon sent this document over proposing a timeline and the sets of issues to be negotiated that will eventually be the PSA. So Nigel Hughes lied about this when asked by Global Witness. This is Global Witness report, and I'm going to put up this report because Global Witness withdrew the report, but in the withdrawal they said they stand by a number of things, including that some government of Guyana officials must be investigated for what took place in the report. They said they had overestimated the flow to Guyana, but they stand by the other content. But it's good to see this report, and I hope that every Guyanese, all of those who are looking at this program and will look at the program, please go to the party's page. I'm going to upload this report, and you will see some interesting things here in the report. For example, in this report, it says the minister and its lawyer. This is an international organization. Trotman here, Minister Raphael Trotman, Nigel Hughes, lawyer. Exxon here, Guyanese government. Together led the PPP. A flow chart showing the connections. So this is what, I'm going to read a section to what Nigel Hughes said as quoted in this report. Hughes has denied that his relationship with Trotman and Exxon represent a conflict of interest. In July 2019, this was since then they were raising this conflict of interest situation, Global Witness. In July 2019, he told Global Witness that his time as AFC chairman did not really overlap with Trotman's time as Minister of Natural Resources. Hughes did not resign his post as AFC chairman near the start of the Stabroek negotiation. Did resign his post as AFC chairman near the start of the Stabroek negotiations and was not in this post when Trotman was negotiating with Exxon in June 2016. But obviously Global Witness did not know that the negotiations started based on their own internal document since 2015, when that document was sent over. But however, as reported in the Guyanese press, Trotman became a minister in May 2015, 11 months before Hughes relinquished his AFC position in April 2016. So he said to Global Witness, oh, I was not Exxon lawyer when Trotman was minister. But it wasn't true. 11 months after Trotman became a minister, that's when he resigned. So here is the chairman of the party, in fact, the general secretary of the party, negotiating with Exxon, and the chairman of the party is Exxon's lawyer. And in the PSA and the bridging deed, both have listed as their local offices his law firm. In both the PSA, the one that everybody says is lopsided, they both listed his law firm as their local offices for all three, for Sinuk, Exxon, and for Hess. So since then, this is there. So I noticed when I mentioned that he didn't read the Act on Politically Exposed Persons, he pointed out there is no law in Guyana to stop politically exposed persons from working for the oil and gas companies, etc., or anyone else. And I see his psychophone say, yes, it's true, there's no law. Well, then I'm politically exposed. I could set up a company, or President Bharrat, or some other minister, and start working for Exxon too. It's what's ethical, first of all, ethical, and secondly, in this case, you already have, in the past, a direct, and now that we're looking at this will cause us, let me make it clear. So Exxon has a lot to answer, because Nigel Hughes, knowing him, He will not want to resign. He is like that. He want to collect the money and still be leader of the AFC. And a conflict of interest would not bother him at all. Because if a person could obscenely say, if Exxon interest conflicts with the national interest, I'll take Exxon's side. Anyone who could say that will not do this. But we're watching what Exxon and the others will do, and the first-tier contractors. And this may necessitate a formal, depending on how that matters, a formal investigation into all these matters. I'm making it clear today. I'm making it clear. We did not. There are lots of politically exposed people. He was politically exposed, as he correctly pointed out. His wife is a member of parliament. And therefore, but we did not, it was not an issue because we didn't want to. He would have said, oh, we're discriminating against Nigel Hughes. We're saying now, why couldn't he earn a living? That's their first thing, earn a living in Guyana. Well, all along he was doing this. What changed is now he has gone to the AFC. I think it's the best thing for us that he is the leader of the AFC, because Norton is right. And I'll deal with that in a moment, what Norton had to say about that. So now it would make interesting reading for people. Both the Clyde and Company report, which says that Exxon wrote the memo that went to the cabinet, their own report said that, by the way. And this is it. So this is unfolding in a very interesting way. But what is it saying all along? That we have a duplicitous person who likes to talk about national interest. He likes to talk about diversity, but it's not diversity when it comes to his slate and his leadership in the AFC. He talks about Afro-Guyanese interests, but you find out how many Afro-Guyanese Cathy Hughes and the others help in the AFC. You've had more Afro-Guyanese who've gotten scholarships, land, etc. under this government than they got under the APNU. Just duplicitous. And then, here too, money comes above the country. And they want to lecture us about the global goal. Oh, I love constitutional reform. You know, people get attracted to that. We had constitutional reform. We had constitutional reform of a major nature. We probably have one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. Where else you have an ethnic relations commission that has the power to prevent a political party from contesting elections, where if that party uses race as a mobilizing factor, where that has the powers of sanction over the executive, where in the world? But they will never carry a case to the ERC, the constitutional body that we set up to investigate every case. They'll go and peddle lies to some congressman. And I see Rickford Burke now has joined his camp. The usual Rickford Burke is hoping to get free legal representation when he comes to Guyana with his extortion case. So psychophantically, I see he's jump on the bandwagon. And a number of other people. But they'll never explore this duplicity here. So this is what we have to deal with. I haven't even spoken about all the other things that Nigel Hughes has been doing in the years that he's been, not just in politics, but in the public domain, and we have a long list, but I'll save that for another day. I do. So the plan was, let me tell you what their plan was. The plan was to say, we're going to make you the presidential candidate. That's the AFC. We're going to do this by commissioning a poll just close to the elections to show that Norton is not the best person to lead the coalition, and therefore you have higher points. And you know how they pay the pollsters. So Nigel Hughes will come out looking better than Norton, and then they would use that to displace Norton. But Norton has made it clear that the presidential candidate has to come from the PNC. And you know what happened? They dealt a major blow to coalition politics in the last government. That is why nobody can trust each other now. So Norton knows that the day he is not presidential candidate, he'll go back. They'd send him back to Bamba Mali. He'd have no role in the party. The moment, he'd lose everything. He knows that. And he knows because that group that was trying to displace him will get rid of him. They will promise him anything in the world to probably get rid of him as the presidential candidate. But if a miracle happens and they get into office, he would have no role. Like he didn't have a role in the last government. And why is he keenly aware of this? He's keenly aware of this because the only way you can do this is through some agreement. And you recall the Cummings-Burg Accord. The Cummings-Burg Accord was struck between the AFC and APNU. And it listed a number of things. It said that the Prime Minister will chair the cabinet of Guyana. You think anybody ever gave, what's his name again? Nagamotu. Yeah, Nagamotu a chance to chair the cabinet? Nagamotu, the Prime Minister, should have selected the ministers to give to the president to appoint. The Prime Minister was going to appoint all heads of agencies, a whole set of about 15 things, responsibility for the Prime Minister and from the other party. They got into office, the Prime Minister became a glorified rubber stamp that everybody knows now. Kwame McCoy, I keep saying this, Kwame McCoy in our government has a bigger portfolio than the Prime Minister in the APNU government had. Kwame McCoy portfolio is larger than his portfolio in our government. Our Prime Minister deals with a whole range of issues. They just ignored him. They were treated like basic outcasts, the AFC. They complained. Granger didn't meet with them, didn't value their opinion. They became so corrupt, the AFC people too. And so they were all about privileges and perks. They did not take a principled stand because they should have rebelled and say, no, this is not what we signed up to. But they willingly submitted themselves, became complicit in this, they basically the sidelining of the AFC, because all the leaders were interested in were which portfolio where they would get and the perks that they would get. Unprincipled leadership. So by doing that, they've demonstrated one thing, that no paper is worth anything that you sign up on before the elections. You can make all sorts of promises. So in coalition, they would say, Norton, you will be naming the cabinet. And then afterwards, Norton busy with a half bottle somewhere else. So that's a role they will have for him. He wouldn't be able to manage that party. And they will. So Norton is keenly aware of this. That is why he said that if we bring most of the votes in, how come we wouldn't have the presidential candidate? So if it's not me, it's somebody else from the PNC. It can't be this man from the AFC that they hope to supplant, even if you're 6 feet tall and handsome. That's what Norton said. Even if you're 6 feet tall, and who will run away the moment, given this history of resigning so many times. That's what Norton was basically saying. He resigns every time. But maybe Norton didn't know it was for pecuniary interests, in my view, that he can't handle the rigor of it. And when his personal money interest conflicts with that of the country, he will exit. And so, in a way, Norton was aware of this. And that's why I think he gave the interview, because they were already starting to move on a campaign to displace him, and it would come first of all by people going to talk to him, and then secondly, doing this poll. So clearly, everything they do is transparent. But it's not for the people of this country. These maneuvering, you notice, very little about programs and all of that. Nigel Hughes wants legislation on the oil and gas to share the benefits. Well, I wonder if that conflicts with Exxon, like the local content law that Exxon didn't want, whether he would have still passed it. He would say, no, that conflicts with my client's interest. You can't do that. That is the kind of person we're dealing with. So maybe I should save some of this for future weeks too, because I'm looking forward to this happening. Us dealing with this again in the future. But the coalition politics, they themselves have killed the coalition politics. Unless it's buttressed by maybe strong laws, etc. It doesn't work. Nobody believes any longer anything that any of these parties will sign up to, however convenient it is. As I said before, I will share the Global Witness report. I'd asked the staff. I want all of you to go through this report. You'll get some good bit of reading here. I asked a number of people, and I'm shocked that so many people didn't actually see this report. It came out on the APNU, and they did not see the report, because since then the conflict of interest issue was being raised. And imagine if it was that then, how worse it is today.